Welcome to How I Raised It, the podcast that goes behind the scenes with entrepreneurs who've raised capital. We uncover the tips, tricks, and techniques they use to get investors to write a check. Strap in and turn it up.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of How I Raised It. Today I have Aaron McDonald of Centrality coming to us from Auckland, New Zealand. How are you doing, Aaron?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm doing well. Bit of a chilly day here. We're coming into autumn, but busy and lots happening in the office today.
Good stuff. So I'm excited. I've had one other international company out of Montreal, but you're the first where we'd have to cross an ocean to reach you. By the way, do you do any sailing down there in New Zealand?
I personally don't. I do get that question a lot from people stateside. It is the city of sails, Auckland, and we have some great sailors in my team, but I would do it casually, like once or twice a year.
Yeah, okay. I'm excited you guys got the America's Cup. That's going to be really exciting, and it'll be fun. I'll do my humble brag. I actually got us go out sailing yesterday. I have a very small boat, and I took it out just by myself under the Golden Gate Bridge. Beautiful winter day in San Francisco Bay. So
awesome.
I'd love to sail in Auckland sometime.
Yeah, we'll come down at the next cup. The design team of the Kiwis have put together are working on some pretty cool stuff. So be exciting race, I think.
Yeah. It's monohull, but they're using foils. So that will be really bizarre. We'll see how that goes. Cool. Awesome. So I'm excited. Not only are you my first, true foreign guest, but also first ICO. So I'm really excited to get into this. But first, let's start off. What is Centrality? What do you guys do? And what's your business?
Yeah. So we're a blockchain venture studio. We've got kind of three main bits to the business. We have a core technology platform, which is kind of, I guess, the infrastructure layer. Blockchain's really early, and so there's a lot of work going into building the underlying foundations and protocols for businesses and applications to exist. And we've been developing our own framework called Plug. You can go to plugblockchain.com and check that out if you want to learn more about it. And so this is kind of the core blockchain technology that underpins a lot of the applications. Then we have the Venture Studio proper business, which is kind of partnering with entrepreneurs who have good ideas, have maybe an existing application that they want to take into a decentralized economic model, or they're starting from scratch, or larger companies who want to push more into the blockchain space with pieces of their business or new innovations. And we work alongside them to bring expertise, technology modules that we've already built to help do things like integrate their systems, or to speed up the development process instead of reinventing the wheel again. You don't have to create, a wallet every time or a customer onboarding journey every time. We can kind of reuse these components. And then we take all of those different applications and we bring them and connect them together to create new and quite unique customer experiences. The whole kind of end game is around creating an ecosystem of apps that can work across different parts of your life every day, that talk to each other or interact with each other in a very frictionless way, and have you, the human, at the center of that experience. You're in control of it, you own your own data, you interact with the system in the way that you choose, and you're genuinely in control of that experience as you go through this ecosystem.
Interesting. And is there a commonality to these apps? Are they all productivity focused, or health, or business, or what's the thread?
Yeah, we actually started this journey because we figured that technology companies, by and large, had this asymmetric relationship with their consumers. They took a lot, the Facebooks and those guys. They take a lot of us, of our souls, of our information. And as we kind of head forward in this digital economy, information is one of those most valuable commodities. And they make a lot of money on and we get a little bit of value back. I can message you or those kinds of things, but it's not a very fair distribution of the value. So we figured that in the future, consumers would want an experience where they're much more in control of the value that they get for the effort they put into growing an ecosystem.
Okay, interesting.
What are these things that make their life, or big things in their life? We came up with these 10 different areas of your life that are either things you spend a lot of time on or a lot of money on. And so we're pushing application to each one of those areas of your life to try and create a holistic experience and to give you more control in things like travel or your home life or your workplace or going out and eating or going to an event, those kinds of things. So all these things that we do on a daily or weekly basis, how can we create a decentralized economic model that puts the human in the center of it and them in control of the value that they get out of it?
Interesting. So these apps, they're created by you or by third parties in the marketplace, or both?
Yeah, both. So either, let's say you could kind of come and work with our engineering team and they might build the application and you might go and run the business. You bring the business side of the team in a joint venture. Or it could be that you take our tools and go through our incubation program as a startup, and we give you some funding and some expertise and access to the systems and libraries and stuff that we've built, and then you go and build it yourself. So both models are kind of options. Bring your own tech team or work with our tech team depending on the opportunity.
Okay.
And as we kind of mature the business and mature the tools, it'll be more and more developers bringing their own innovations and ideas into this marketplace and leveraging off the great work that's gone before them. And we build the applications in such a way or the frameworks in such a way that once you're a consumer inside that ecosystem, you can jump between the different apps. And so if you're launching a new app into this economy, you can already have a ready marketplace of content of customers that don't have to go through a full onboarding journey to participate. And so hopefully these startups start to help each other to scale and grow rather than having to fight it alone against the big guys out there.
Do you see these apps coming from existing apps on the web, kind of migrating into your blockchain universe, or are they fresh, new? Is this like a new greenfield territory? What do you think happens?
I think there's a mix of both. We've got some interesting kind of, let's say, current internet applications that are looking at decentralizing the relationship or the economic model. But I think the most successful ones are going to be people who've come up with that future model from scratch, and it's kind of built into the ethos of their organization and the way that they've designed the application, the way they're engaging their communities. That if you're kind of born and bred with that, I think you're going to have a better chance of success.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about, I have a lot of questions I could go into about the marketplace and creating this new ecosystem, because that's fascinating in its own right. But let's talk about fundraising a little bit. So how long have you guys been around?
Just coming up to 2 years now, so 20 odd months.
Okay. And how did you fund it when you were just starting out? And then also, how much have you raised? And I know you had an ICO, so let's talk about kind of all three of those pieces there.
Yeah, we were a little different to many blockchain companies, actually. I think if you look at a lot of ICOs, the vast majority at least are kind of on-paper businesses. And they're asking often for a lot of money for something that is, could be a good idea, let's say. But there's been no track record to prove that they should really kind of be asking for that much money. We self-funded, we bootstrapped it. The founders did the initial kind of 3 to 6 month period, and then we got some investment from a small network of high net worths and a few funds, to the point that we had a good minimum viable product, and we understand the market fit, and we understood what was working and what wasn't working. And then we went into the kind of crypto raise territory. And so So we had a more traditional start to our process, and then we kind of ended up with a kind of the new way of kind of equity raising in the crypto space, or capital raising.
Great. And so when did you do the ICO? That was fairly recently.
Yeah, we had two phases. So we had what's called a pre-sale late last year, September-ish, and we raised around 40,000 Ether in that process, which was at the time around $15 million. And now it's worth about 40 million, that same 40,000 Ether. So yeah, it was kind of the first phase of this process, and we took that and then we invested in the business, and we kind of built up the next stage of partnerships, technology, applications, and then we went into our main sale period in January this year, which we raised around 80 million US dollars at the time. Combined, those two rounds put us, well inside the top 10 of all of ICOs in recent history, and really successful kind of process all the way through.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So what platform did you use to hold the ICO? And tell us about kind of pre-marketing, I guess, both for your pre-sale and your sale. How do you generate that level of interest?
Yeah, so the platform, actually, we created a platform ourselves. One thing about operating in the blockchain space is because it's new, not a lot of the things exist. You need to kind of operate a business in that space. So we've had to create tools along the way that end up becoming businesses in their own right. So for a simple example, how do you pay your staff around the world in Ether and do that in a kind of really non-manual spreadsheet kind of way? There's no payroll system, so we built a payroll system for Ethereum. How do you account for your transactions and submit taxes and stuff like that? Well, there wasn't anything, so we built an accounting system. And likewise with our sale, we wanted to do things in a very regulatory compliant way in the jurisdictions that we were structured in and that we were raising in. And so we built sophisticated KYC, AML, fraud detection tools, and then connected them to our decentralized token sales platform, which runs a fully peer-to-peer process. We don't hold custody of people's money at any stage. You get the tokens the instant you kind of submit the Ether to the contract. Only authorized buyers can actually access the contract. So it was kind of a little bit new in the ICO space. And we built the tools to support that to make sure that we could be as compliant as possible.
Gotcha. Very interesting. So is that one of the apps then? Do you now spin that out into its own? Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we're now supporting a whole bunch of businesses in our portfolio and even outside our portfolio that are going through their own capital raising processes using this tool.
Okay. Very interesting. So tell us about the marketing. How do you generate interest for this? You're beyond a white paper, which it seems like a lot of them are, so that's cool. But still, how do you get in front of so many people to buy so many tokens?
Yeah, I think it's just a case of good old-fashioned community building. So we looked at the markets that we felt we could raise kind of capital in, and we did a mix of kind of in-person outreach into those markets, roadshow type stuff with the bigger kind of investors, and social marketing.
Can you give an example of the former? Like you identified, maybe just walk me through one. Just still kind of in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So we have a really good strong network in Japan. Japan's a very crypto-friendly market, and they're kind of ahead of the curve, I think, in terms of their investment in this kind of emerging economy. And so we partnered up with a specialist crypto advisory in Japan called the CTIA. who we did a due diligence process with, and they did due diligence on us, and they kind of checked out that what we were saying was true, and kind of at that point we could start to introduce you to the network over there of people who are investing in that space, and then educating people around our project, and kind of boosting that with the content we create in our own community. Kind of just market how you kind of market your business in this day and age.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So does that mean direct email, marketing on? I mean, Facebook banned token sale advertising, right? Is that?
Yeah, they recently did. I can understand why, and I think it's probably a prudent move given some of the catching up that regulation has to do with this particular space. I would rather that we drove forward a sustainable economy where responsible investment was happening, and there were guidelines and clear rules in place from the market regulators than what exists today. You could argue that over time the market matures anyway, and that may not be necessary. But I think in the interim, at least, that kind of thing is probably a good move. But there are plenty of other places you get to know this marketplace. You have very active communities in Line, in Telegram, in WeChat, on Twitter, in various forums, Reddit, etc. So places that crypto investors and entrepreneurs would normally kind of gather around aren't necessarily your traditional platforms anyway.
How many, if you're able to share, I mean, you raised over 100 million US. How many investors or buyers is that spread across?
Yeah, we had I think 8,000 qualified buyers in the lead up to the sales process register and become accredited. The sale was over very quickly, and I think we had more than 620 individual investors in the end managed to make it through that process. So we were kind of overwhelmed actually with the speed and kind of scale that we managed to. We thought it would be successful. We knew to hit our number. We just didn't realize it was going to be that quick or that kind of popular. And if we had known, we probably would have set the max investment limit a little bit lower so we could have more people participate. But over 600 investors participated in that process.
Wow. So let's talk about that. So are these token buyers, are they investors? And then how is the value of the token? This is something I struggle with constantly when I see these ICOs. How is the value of the token tied to the success of Centrality?
We would see them as investors in us. They have kind of made a bet that we're going to do a good job of what we've been talking about and demonstrating. And in terms of value for them, I guess it depends on what you kind of got into it for. This crypto economic model isn't like your traditional kind of equity model. You're more like you can have roles inside of this more like a membership or a club. If you believe in that technology and the products that those people are producing, then you're kind of effectively a participant in the creation of those products or the ongoing usage of those products using this token. It's probably more akin to how you would participate in a postal network. If you're a holder of a stamp, you can do certain things in this network using the token, the stamp. The postal company's got its job to do. It's delivering things from A to B. It doesn't necessarily know what's inside that package or how it's working or who it's, necessarily the individuals who it's going to, but it facilitates this process. So you've got those kind of people who are holding the token because they want to be part of the network and they want to do things in the network. Then you've got people who are probably speculating. So they're thinking, hey, this is a good idea. People are going to love it. The price is going to go up. We're going to get in there and be part of that journey. And then you'll have end users. So if you're a user inside of one of our applications, you can be receiving and sending these tokens for doing certain things, buying something, or being rewarded for something, or making a process happen inside of that application.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting, and this is another thing I struggle with conceptualizing it all. Like, once you remove the speculators, what does that sort of support level look like, right? Like for any token, which eventually will happen, right? And that's I don't know if that's a question. I don't know. I don't know how to frame that as a question, but it's like, I don't know. Any comments on how that works?
I think no one really has the answer to this because it's quite a different paradigm. I don't think people, everyday people, have had the opportunity to participate as freely and openly in the investment of projects that they find interesting in history before. The typical investors in startups are small groups of powerful people with lots of money, and even in the kind of public stock markets and stuff like that, the majority of players are big banks or funds or those kinds of things. This is a genuinely decentralized kind of retail level play that we haven't seen before. And that's got good and bad to it. I think in any investment category, you're going to have speculation. It doesn't not exist in Wall Street, right? Right. Most of the world's monetary system runs on speculation to a certain extent. So to say that it's an exclusively crypto trait is probably naive.
Yeah.
And so speculation is good for certain reasons in a market economy. It's also bad when it's out of kilter, and we're probably in the out of kilter stage at the moment in blockchain. I think that'll settle down. It has to. Market will mature, regulation will mature, speculation will exist, but I think it'll be a little bit more even and more aligned to underlying facts in terms of business performance or ecosystem performance. Probably the better way to put it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think it all comes down also to supply and demand, of course, which actually kind of tees up my next question. Is it in your charter that you could? I read on your website it's the tokens are not mined; they're earned or purchased.
That's it.
So could you make as many as you want, or how do you maintain scarcity so that the value is maintained?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. They're minted in our case, not mined. And the way that happens is using a smart contract. A smart contract's a small application that lives inside the blockchain. And this is one of the fundamental things about blockchain companies is when you create those rules and they're programmed into the contract, even if I wanted to change it, I couldn't. So you don't have to trust me. You don't have to trust Centrality. You don't have to trust our board. You just trust the software. And the software says there's only this many tokens, and the contract's published to the blockchain, and even we can't change that. And so this is the interesting thing about the way that this marketplace might evolve is in the past we've had to trust the company to be the same thing that they promised us today and in the future.
Yep.
And that very often isn't the case, and very often it works against us. There are recent examples, and I don't know if you know about Patreon, the site where you can kind of build a fan base and they can contribute small amounts to your work. They recently just went in, after building up this big community and audience, and people worked hard to build up their audiences, they just went and ad hoc changed the pricing mechanics. They've got VCs they've got to answer to, and they've got a shareholder to satisfy at the end of the day, and multiples to meet. And meanwhile, the community that created that business gets screwed over at a whim. That kind of stuff shouldn't happen in a good blockchain economy.
No, that's really interesting. Now that's a great kind of example. So let's riff on that. So speaking of trust, a new company gets $100 million in the bank. Like, can you do whatever you want with that? Is it, what's to prevent you, just as an extreme example, from taking that money and jetting off to wherever?
Buying Lambos?
Buying, how is that, because I think of, again, traditional startups, you've got a board that's overseeing that. They're regularly, inspecting your books and your financial reporting and all that stuff. So where are the controls with what you can do with that money, if you could educate me?
It's no different. A good, responsible blockchain company should be no different. I mean, there are plenty of examples in blockchain and in VC and in kind of the share market where people, do the wrong thing with investors' confidence. And in our case, we have a board, we have an audit firm appointed, we have independent legal advice on any matters that kind of pertain to the way that money's used or moved or taxed. So all the things you'd expect from a responsible company are in place in our business, and that's how it should be for anyone that's trying to do something sustainable in the blockchain space.
You have counsel, external accountants, attorneys, but an actual board, and is the board make up of token buyers, or is a board those early high net worth investors? Or maybe tell me about that.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a mix of internal kind of executive representation as well as external, and both investors and independent in the board makeups across the Centrality group. We are in the process of actually adding some more governance and some more independent board members to the process as well. As you go through these different phases of company growth, you want to try and beef up on things like governance and oversight, and so that's something that we're going through as a business now, going through and making the choices about who should be best representing the community. In terms of the individual investors, token holders, there are certain models out there in the ecosystem where token holders can effectively vote on how money is spent or how it's released in the process. These are new models that are emerging, actually, and I think they'll become more popular over time. We'll see, we'll commit $100 million to that, but we'll vote on how much of that's released over what time, and if you don't kind of make the progress that you said you were going to, then that can be refunded. And all of that process can be managed inside a smart contract as well. So you can kind of trust that thing is going to happen if the community decides that it will, and the owners of that, the people running that business can't actually change that process.
That's interesting. And is that all put forth usually in a white paper of?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, I was going to ask, I think you kind of already answered it, but if we'll see companies like yourselves have a board made up of, people specific whose duties are to represent the token holders, and it sounds like that's kind of evolving.
Yeah, I think you'll see these evolution of more decentralized governance models. Some of the reason why it doesn't exist today actually is because regulation hasn't really caught up to what's possible or how this new ecosystem works. And things like allowing an investor to vote on how money is spent puts you right in securities territory in some cases. And so if you're trying to create something that's this mix of different models, even if you wanted to provide those rights, you're sometimes kind of guided not to because you would fall into categories of investment which don't really work in the blockchain space as well.
I think you kind of answered my next question too, which was, do token holders have information rights to view your books? I mean, beyond voting rights, but actually just information rights to see the numbers, or is that?
Yeah, I think it would depend. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. In our case, we're intending to be as transparent and open as possible with what's going on, how the money's being spent. And in a lot of cases, that's very easy to see in a blockchain environment because you've got an open ledger. So people can follow transactions and see what's going on anyway because that information is public.
Okay, shifting gears, I could probably drill down on that stuff because that's fascinating to me. But shifting gears, kind of advice for people who want to do a token sale, and related to that, how much pre-marketing did you do before the pre-sale? Like, how many months were you out drumming up interest before you did the pre-sale?
Yeah, I think first thing would be to make sure that what you're doing is genuinely creating a decentralized ecosystem. I see a lot of token sales coming out that are just kind of there for the fact that they can raise some quick capital, not really kind of contributing to the growth of what the blockchain represents. If you're going to come into this space, really understand those crypto economic models and how you can get equal participant from all the value actors inside of that. That would be the first thing. Second thing is, do make sure that you, in my experience, it's better to maybe take a little bit more time, get some non-ICO money, and prove that you've got a MVP and you can actually execute on something before you start going asking for the public's money. I'm a believer in putting your own kind of ass on the line if you believe in what you're doing and your ability to execute it. Do that first, prove it at least to the point you've got a minimum viable product before you start going out and asking for more. And when you do that, do it in a staged approach. Take those steps through a pre-sale and have some time to go and spend that money well and invest it well and prove that you can take that next step and go up the chain. So it wouldn't be any different really to going through a traditional VC process, but do that in the kind of new crypto economic way.
No, that's good. That's good. It's still it blows my mind though when you have companies. I feel like there's a perversity that just is bound to happen when you raise huge amounts of money on something so early, right? Like it just can change how you would normally develop something, which is very lean and based on feedback, right? Like it's almost like the rich inheritance thing where someone suddenly inherits money that kind of messes them up. I don't know. Do you see, I guess part of it is the transparency, but do you see any other counteractions to that or remedies to that?
Yeah, I think that's a relatively common problem when companies get funded, irrespective of the way that is funded. There's plenty of businesses that have been successful to a point because of the constraints that they've had, and when they get removed from those constraints, you end up with a mess, and that comes down to the basics of having a good team who knows how to execute, that's been in. If you're interested in space, do your homework on the people behind the business and see what they've managed to do before and how, what industries they've worked in and have they taken things through, successfully or unsuccessfully, through a process which is kind of adequate for where they're at in their journey. We have a really experienced founding team who's, been involved with multiple ventures that have kind of gone to multiple billions of dollars, and so we know what we're doing in this space, and that should always be a good indicator for the likelihood of success. We could never predict this stuff 100%. It wouldn't be fun, or it wouldn't be investing if we knew the answer. But do your homework.
Yeah, it's good. So a couple more quick questions. I'll let you get back to building your business. Where does this money take you? Are you funded forever now? I mean, or do you think you have to raise do another token sale? Or do you ever look at venture capital or traditional sources later on? I mean, what's your sort of funding philosophy from here on out?
Yeah, I think, if you build, it's kind of a little bit of a flip of the model, right? So in this in this world, you're essentially exiting at the beginning, in a certain way. Not that we've got the money as founders from this. We have to actually deliver value, and our tokens are locked up. And if our tokens are worth something in the future, then we actually get our exit. So we've got a responsibility to kind of spend this and grow the ecosystem and get our value out, just like everybody else. But if you can't take something like what we've raised and turn it into a self-sustaining economic model, and within the period that cash should last, then you probably didn't deserve to have the money. So we shouldn't have to raise more money for Centrality and what Centrality is trying to do, because the model itself should pick up and be self-sustaining. You look at Ethereum as an example. No one owns it. There's no one saying we're going to pay you to build software on it, or we're going to pay you to run infrastructure on it, to process transactions or innovate on top of it. You've got a community of people who are contributing to the combined value of this platform, and they're doing that because the economic model built into the platform incentivizes them to do it. And so once you get over that hump, the model should take over and it should be self-sustaining.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Actually, I want to just probe a little on something. You mentioned that your tokens are locked up. What's a typical token lockup period, and is it are they unlocked upon a time-based thing or hitting certain milestones? How does that usually work?
I think in most cases it's locked up on time base, and in general, the responsible ones would be kind of 24 months at least, and that would give enough time to kind of execute the project, get it out there, get usage happening, prove that you were able to deliver on the things that your investors you promised them. And if you did a really good job of that, then your share of those tokens should be worth something that's worth your time and energy putting into that process.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, last question here. I hear every different argument on this, but what's the macro market looking like for token sales? I see people saying this is about to crash, others that this is just a beginning. Obviously, you have a sort of a biased or a unique perspective, given that you just raised one of the top 10 token sales. But what do you think the market is right now? General outlook for the ICO market?
I think we're going to go through a period of cooling at some point. As you do with any technology cycle, there are ups and downs, and we're relatively early days. I think because of the hype and maybe some of the irresponsible behavior of some actors, that there'll be some crunch coming in from regulatory point of view. But I do think blockchain as a technology framework is here to stay, and I do think the ICO as a funding and participatory model for technology companies in the future is here to stay. And in the long run, companies that have raised good amounts of money, if they execute well, they'll come out of this and build the communities of the future that are akin to the Amazons and the Facebooks. And so, probably we'll see some impact, either positive or negative moves from different regulators. But in the long term, this is here to stay. The future that we should all be looking for is a decentralized future, because in a centralized future, only a few people win.
Yeah, interesting. That's a great concluding thought. Really quick, did you sell tokens to U.S. Purchasers, or did you avoid the U.S. market because of security ambiguity?
Yeah, the U.S. is a market that most token launches will avoid at a retail level. We work with some funds in the US who obviously have a different accreditation status, but by and large, most ICOs at the moment would stay away from retail investors in the US. I think there is stuff changing in the US at the moment that will open this up a little bit more. I noticed Wyoming is passing some legislation opening up a lot more at a state level.
Wyoming.
I
don't think of Wyoming as the place for that, but okay.
Yeah, and we're actually working with some companies, some US companies, talking to some US companies that are looking at doing securities compliant tokens and the like, and you'll see more of this kind of activity that will again open the doors to US retail investors.
Very interesting. Okay, last question. Do you want to make any kind of plug for Centrality? Where should people check you out? It's Centrality.io, correct? Or
Centrality.ai.
.ai, sorry. AI.
Yeah. You can go there or follow us on Twitter at Centrality.ai. We've got good content coming out all the time about this ecosystem and the blockchain in general, and interesting projects that are kind of part of our ecosystem coming to market, applications that you could use yourself. So take a look, check us out, provide us some feedback. Hit us up.
Can people go there and they can't buy tokens right now, but can they go in and start playing around with the apps, or can they do other things on the site, or is it mainly...
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we actually launched the token on our own exchange yesterday, and we built a decentralized exchange called SingularX. You can go to singularx.com and check it out there. So the tokens are now kind of publicly traded, if you will, and applications in the marketplace, depending on where you are, you can start to use some of those applications now. We'll be releasing some new ones in the very near future, which are kind of global scale from day one. So look out for that stuff. Anyone can download those and start playing with them. And then we've got some of our frameworks coming out to be open source shortly. So keep an eye on plugblockchain.com, and we'll be releasing source code for developers to play with there.
Awesome. All right, Aaron, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This has been great, and continued success. I love it. This is really insightful. I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Bye now.